Oh, this is gonna be crazy.
Okay, destroy the building.
Alright, hello everyone and welcome today to another edition of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. It is actually the first one that I have done in quite some time, which makes me a little bit happy that today I'm going to be able to add another one to the long list. Today we are going to review Dragon Ball XenoVerse. It's going to be a little bit more of a shorter review because I'm actually doing it in the morning before I leave. Because I just feel like I have a lot of stuff that I was thinking about when I was sleeping, you know, as I was kind of piecing together this review, and I wanna get him down right now. And since I just beat the game while it's still fresh on my mind, I think that this is a good idea. So, Dragon Ball XenoVerse is a fighting game based on the Dragon Ball's anime and manga series. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dragon Ball is one of the, well, I don't want to say it's one of the longest running because there's certainly anime that have run longer, but it's one of the most well-known and well-received animes, I want to say almost on the planet. You know, just about everyone knows about Dragon Ball, especially in America. It's when you know, when anime was getting popular over here, Dragon Ball was one of the big ones back in the 90s and the early 2000s that kind of everyone knew before Naruto, you know, and before other anime and stuff like that began to, you know, follow suit afterwards. And Dragon Ball XenoVerse is, you know, similar to a lot of other Dragon Ball games. It's a fighting game. Basically, you know, you have your standard fighting moves. You have your light attack, your heavy attack, your teleport, and your jumping. You know, similar to a lot of the fights in the show, there's a lot of flying around. There's a lot of teleporting and countering. And there's a lot of cool stuff like that. You also get to create your own character in this game, which is pretty cool. You can pick between a couple of different races. You can pick between human male, human female, Saiyan male, Saiyan female, Namekian, which is Piccolo's race. I don't even know what it's called. I don't even think it really has an official name. Frieza's race, which those two races only have one gender. And Majin Buu's race, male or female. And basically, you know, this game kind of has an RPG aspect to it when it comes to your character, where you level up by completing missions and clearing them with better rankings. You get better moves that you can equip for your character, a lot of which are based off or are direct rips from other people's moves from throughout the series. So, for example, you could get a Vegeta move or something like that. You can get better equipment. You can get stat points that you can then directly put into your stats to improve your character in one of 6 different areas. Improve your health, your Kai, which is basically your you know, your energy that you can use for special moves, your stamina, which is what you need for teleporting, dodging, and stuff like that, and flying around at, you know, the typical Dragon Ball speeds. Your basic attack, your strike supers, which are your physically oriented moves that are, you know, more than just your basic attacks, and your Kai Blast supers, which are basically more than your energy supers. And I like that about this game. And that is one of the pluses I will give to this game, is the RPG aspect is fun. You know, it's fun to have this character that you custom tailor to your fighting style, because typically in a fighting game you're restricted to a certain group of characters, and essentially you have to you have to kind of plaster yourself around one character. Now, usually, you know, it's not that bad. You know, usually you find a character you like either really quickly or sooner or later, or you adapt to one character or something like that. But in this game, I think it's really cool that you can actually just go ahead and make your own character, and, you know, tailor their entire fighting style based around what you want to do. That, I think, is pretty cool. And I like that about this game. When I was doing a lot of off-camera grinding for it, I like that about this game. And yes, there is grinding. And the other thing I do want to say, and I do say this for just about every review I do of an anime-style game, if you are not a fan of Dragon Ball, or you are just not a fan of anime in general, you will probably not like this game. I will say that again because a lot of people have stigmas against anime. Some people just don't like it, which is fine. But I feel obligated to say this on every anime-based review that you will probably not like it if you do not like Dragon Ball. So I suggest you go watch a little bit of Dragon Ball, or specifically Dragon Ball Z, which is what this game is largely based off of. There are other Dragon Ball animes such as Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball GT. Um, I suggest you get familiarized with it a bit because that's where the real meat of this game comes from, and this actually segues right into what I want to talk about. Is that if you are a fan of Dragon Ball, this game might be very similar to other Dragon Ball games in that you're basically reliving the same sagas again that you've already probably seen and memorized and taken to heart 500,000 times. The typical, you start off with the invasion of Earth by Raditz, and you go from there up until the Majin Buu arc. But the one thing I will say is I do like if that's your kind of thing, reliving the Dragon Ball series, then this game is going to be right up your alley. I know that last year we had Dragon Ball Battle of the Gods, which I unfortunately have not played yet, and I'm probably not going to do a review on. Because at this point it's very late for me to do a review on that game. But Dragon Ball Battle of Z, excuse me, Battle of Gods was the movie. Battle of Z was the not tie-in game, but Battle of Z was the game that came out in 2014. And it is, I want to say that the setting is pretty similar, except it's a more personally involved role where you create your own character and you follow the storyline as you relive past events to ensure that the timeline is fine and nothing bad happens to history. But it's a pretty similar setup. Basically you go to various different time periods. You fight as or alongside some of the iconic Dragon Ball characters in a lot of the iconic fights. Although unlike what I want to say with Dragon Ball Battle of Z, which had alternate missions, here or there, the actual main storyline of this game does include a lot of alternate things. So for example, you might go back to the Cell Saga, and you might fight, a couple of different enemies, alongside Cell, and maybe a few other things might happen that are a little bit different than the way they did. So it's not like it's a perfect rehash. Like you could get the same thing from watching the anime, of course, because not only you have this first-person character that you don't play in first-person, excuse me, you have this character that you're personally involved with, who's entering into this story, and things are changing. You have a couple of people trying to change history for their own ends that you need to stop. And I like that about this game. When you're reliving the Dragon Ball sagas, that's pretty cool. I think that that's one of the better parts of the game. The one thing I will say, though, is that the story does have a lukewarm ending. Obviously, no spoilers here. But the story kind of has a lukewarm ending, kind of gives way and leaves a couple plot holes and everything, And in general, I feel that could have been done a bit better, but we'll see what they do. It could be a segue into DLC. It could be a segue into a lot of different things. But for the most part, at least the story is very fulfilling. Now, the main single player, the main single player is divided up into two different parts. The Time Patrol missions, which are your basic storyline quests, like what I just said, where you relive major events and, it's all one big narrative that eventually concludes. But also you have the parallel quests, which are your side missions. These are the missions you're going to grind. These are the missions that are going, as the game progresses, you can do them co-op with up to 2 other humans, or you could use bots to fill in the place of humans. And basically you all work together, you all get separate rankings at the end, you get experience points, you get money, you can potentially get items, you can get Dragon Balls, you can get a ton of stuff from doing these missions, which is kind of what adds to the replayability of the game, that you would replay a lot of these missions again and again and again until you basically have, leveled up your character, you have basically gotten all the items you could want, which, I'm saying that, but it takes a much longer time. And I like that they have these parallel quests. A lot of them are pretty interesting. Some of them are pretty funny. And the other thing I want to say is I do like the way that all the characters interact with each other. So, for example, if you're fighting, say, like Krillin and Gohan versus Piccolo, Piccolo might say something to Gohan because in the anime, Piccolo was Gohan's teacher. Or, let's say that you're fighting Goku versus Raditz. You know, Raditz might comment that, you know, oh, Goku should listen to his older brother, and stuff like that. Stuff like that I really like. And that's pretty cool. And you know, I like that they have these personal one-on-one interactions. It's something that I said a lot in Naruto Storm 2. I didn't do an official review on it, but something I said a lot about that game is that all the fights in that storyline could be emulated in multiplayer with little to no loss of anything. I like that they have, when you're playing single player, they have these nice touches to it. You know, I like that in these anime games, where if you've watched the anime, you know, you can kind of get a good feel of that. Admittedly, though, I am not as knowledgeable on Dragon Ball as I am like Naruto or Yu Yu Hakusho, but we already know that. Another thing that I will say is I really, really, really like the music and the style of this game. Typically, you know, I say this about like every Namco Bandai game, but I just, you know, kind of want to throw it out there. I really like the visuals of this game, the presentation of it, and the way that they always handle these anime style games has always been good in my opinion. I have never not liked a Dragon Ball game, or excuse me, a Namco Bandai anime style game. So they get kudos from me there for doing a good job. But the one here now, I gotta kind of get into the bad parts. I'm probably, as I go along here, I'll remember a lot of the things I like about this game. But the one thing I do want to say is that first things first. The one thing I don't like about this game is that when, at least single player right now, I'm still sticking to single player before I go to the competitive multiplayer, single player and co-op. The way that they kind of make this game more difficult is they make it so that as you're doing more and more parallel quests, I mean, this doesn't affect the storyline too much except until the end, but the way that they make the missions harder and harder and harder. Now, I do think the AI does adapt to you to some degree, but the way that they make the missions harder and harder and harder is they basically give the bosses more and more super armor. Basically, your attacks do not stagger them. So you'll be punching them, you'll be comboing them, and it, you know, typically in a fighting game, when you get hit, or when you get, you know, knocked out, or you know, you get kicked or whatever, you experience something called stun or knockback, where basically you've been hit, you know, this leads into combos and stuff like that, and you can't just freely retaliate and do whatever you please. They do that a lot in this game, especially the parallel quests beyond level 3 and 4 get really insane with the amount of special knockback that these characters don't receive. And it gets to the point of frustration. The other thing I will say is that if you're trying to play this game, I strongly advise that you play this game with other humans, like you have friends that you can play with, and you all can and do co-op and everything online. And the reason I strongly advise it is because the AI will not help you, and that is the biggest problem with this game, is that the AI is very spotty and very unpredictable. Your teammate AI. I once did a side quest with Instant Retreat, you know, for co-op, off camera. This was when we were grinding, and it was to protect Super Boo against, you know, the various forces of Earth that were trying to defeat him. And basically, Super Boo acted like a baby. You know how when you have a baby, replace that. You know how when you have a baby, you have to make sure they don't walk or, you know, crawl onto something dangerous, and you have to basically look at them 24/7 or make sure that they're protected or in a safe place 24/7. That is essentially what I had to do with Super Boo. And because it was just the two of us and we didn't have a third person, unfortunately, this game basically said, well, Super Boo is just basically a walking body bag, and, you know, you have to protect him. And he took massive amounts of damage from these enemies. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like he was stupid in a tank. He was dying in a couple of hits. And that's part of the mission, I understand, to make it more difficult, but at least make the AI, you know, have some kind of survival instinct, because then this game really turns into a Resident Evil 4 style escort mission, which might, you know, barely be passable. Like, people hate escort missions for a lot of various reasons, but that is not fun in a fighting game. It really is not, especially when you're fighting already, like, the two of us, because Super Boo is worthless. You know, we're fighting a 2v3 against a bunch of people. There's no way that we can, you know, keep the attention of 3 different enemies at once. And one of the better strategies that we found out was that if you bring a third person, you can have the third person stay behind in a safe area while the other two people go out and fight, the two people at the end of the mission, say, and win it easily, because Super Boo will follow the person who is... Super Boo either follows one specific person, or he follows the person who is lagging behind the most. And so in either of those cases, whoever is lagging behind, or whoever is, that specific person, can just sit in the safe area and be fine. So the AI is very spotty, very unpredictable, and at a lot of times not helpful. A lot of times your AI teammates will just die instantly, and whether it's because the enemy is just so blatantly overpowered that they do so much special damage to them, or whether it's because the AI just simply does not do anything to survive or protect itself or avoid anything, really is a detriment to this game, I feel. And that's what leads to a lot of annoyances later on, especially when you're fighting 1v3s against some of the big saga villains like Cell or Majin Buu. It gets very, very annoying that you have an AI that needs to be babied, and if they die, you fail the mission. And add that to the fact that they could have super armor, they could be boss-type enemies with 2 health bars. It gets out of control at some points. And at least for PvE, the single player, you should probably be allowed to have more than 1 healing item assigned to each slot. So I'm not saying you can have like 60 or something, but at least, you can only have 4 different items, by the way, mind you, assigned to any of your 4 buttons. You cannot have duplicates. At least let me bring in a couple extra ones if I'm going to be taking on a 1v3. And I mean, I that to me was a little bit annoying, and it makes the game really, really grind-worthy. In a bad sense, in that way. There's a good sense of grinding and a bad sense of grinding, and I think that that's one of them. The other thing that I also say is that the lobby system in this game is non-existent. So basically the way that the game works is you have this hub area, and it has different areas, and one of them is like the multiplayer area, the side quest area. You can do offline parallel quests and side missions, which are basically you and the AI do these missions. You can do online, which you can team up with your other human friends and tackle them. There's also competitive multiplayer online and offline in another spot on that area. But basically, I do like the hub area, by the way. I do like the fact that they have all these different things around. But basically, the problem with this game is that if you want to do online, the game is designed in a way that after you, basically say, okay, I want to do this mission, I invite these people, we go ahead, we do the mission, done, whatever. It doesn't take you back to the lobby. Like, there is no party system. Instead, what the game does is it boots everyone back to the hub, completely unconnected, and you have to start over, reassemble the party, pick a new mission, and I just wish that could be a bit more fluid, because it's a process that, adds an unnecessary amount of time to it. And that I don't like. Also, I wish that they had something like different clashes and things that you can do in the game. The generic clash is that, typically the Dragon Ball style of thing where both you and your opponent trade blows and you get back stamina and stuff and you take a little bit of damage. I wish they had more of those, especially for, say, like if 2 Kamehamehas or 2 energy-based blast moves trade, that they will actually, like, do the typical thing in the show where they are equally powered or something along those lines. And I wish that, that had a little bit more to it, because I feel that a lot of times, especially against the AI, your moves are going to get canceled out super easily. You're going to get chain thrown, and especially if you're in a 1v anything more than 1, you're going to get tag teamed and destroyed at some points. And in fact, it becomes almost impossible in some missions once your AI teammate dies, for you to efficiently kill anything, because you're just getting tagged up on too much to do any combos or anything, or avoid any moves. But thankfully, the healing items in this game definitely do help. But the one thing that I really think that they affect is the multiplayer of this game. This game actually has a pretty decent multiplayer setup. There's 1v1s, there's 2v2s, there's 3v3s, and you can, invite your friends. You can do a lot of things. You can do open lobbies and stuff that, people can join. Random matchmaking, which you can also do for the side missions, by the way. You can do random matchmaking. But unfortunately, the multiplayer could be kind of imbalanced. There's some points where, there might be certain setups with certain custom characters, because you can use your custom character in multiplayer, and you can also use items, by the way, in multiplayer, that kind of may imbalance the game. They kind of may be what do I want to say? I want to say that it kind of could be pretty bad. And that's the one thing that I learned while playing multiplayer on this game is that, the multiplayer battles sometimes typically go nowhere. You have a 3-minute fight on a 3v3 where at the end it's a draw because everyone used their items and nobody died. And it didn't go anywhere. But ultimately, the one thing I do want to say about Dragon Ball is that despite its, couple of flaws here and there, the game is still fun. The game is still good, and it's especially if you're a fan of the Dragon Ball series. Dragon Ball XenoVerse is definitely something that you're going to at least want to take a heavy interest in. You're definitely going to want to look into it and see how good it is and see how much you enjoy it. Now, the one thing I want to say is that XenoVerse, even though it had a lukewarm storyline, has problems with some of the side quests and has problems with a lot of the other stuff. In just about every other area, this game is a pretty satisfying Dragon Ball game, and if you're a good fan, you're going to like it. So, that's really all I want to say about it right now. I mean, the one thing else I will say about this game is it has a lot of cool hidden stuff, and I think it's something that definitely, more than the average game, you'll want to go back and replay, whether it be to level up your character, just to hang out with some friends and, relive some Dragon Ball memories or relive alternate scenarios, and stuff like that. So what would I give Dragon Ball XenoVerse? I'm going to go ahead and give Dragon Ball XenoVerse a 77 out of 100. And the reason I give it that is because all the aforementioned flaws really do come into play. Also, a kind of a minor thing I just remembered is that the game really, while it is a good re-encompassing of the whole series, really a lot of characters are missing that are major characters like Chi-Chi, Bulma, Oolong, Master Roshi, etc. They're just simply not in the game, and I feel that that's a little weird, but that's not one of the big things that I really took off, points for in this review. 77, because at a lot of points the game is annoying. It is kind of frustrating to have, failed missions repeatedly because the AI gets itself killed, or because the game is imbalanced, or because bosses tag team you with super armor. I do like the mentor system where you can learn specifically under certain different people and learn their fighting styles. That is a plus in my opinion. The hub area that, people are coming in and out of, that's also a plus in my opinion. But the actual gameplay of this game is a little bit shaky, and the storyline could have been a bit better, I feel. But there are DLC packs for this game. I'm not saying that could, fix the score or anything, but I just want to say they do have a plan for, some DLC plan for this game to add more to it. At least what I will say is the story feels all right. It's an acceptable length. It's just not a very good ending, I want to say. And it obviously leaves it open for interpretation. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with this game. If they add, say, like GT style things to the game, or anything else Dragon Ball related, because then that'll make it a more all-encompassing Dragon Ball experience, which would be pretty cool. Especially again if you're a fan of Dragon Ball and you like that. But yeah, 77, Dragon Ball XenoVerse, definitely being something special. Being a game that really I wasn't too sure if I would like it or not, just kind of being out there that I would buy it. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. So thank you, Namco Bandai, and I will see you guys next time. The other thing I do want to say is I will probably start recording my verdicts with my mic on my other computer. I will, see how feasible that is and if I even remember, because honestly, I'm about to go and forget everything I just did right now once I go start to leave for a class. But I just wanted to say that, yeah, I will consider doing that, and I will try to have the next verdict. Basically, before Type 0 comes out, there's a full week of stuff that I need to do, and I want to get on with it. Yeah, get on with it. There's a full week of stuff that I want to do, and Kirby is coming out. So, next verdict will most likely be Kirby and the Rainbow Curse if I can beat it within a week, and I will see you guys for that one.